Howdy, Aggs and returning Roadrunners. It turns out last night the Aggies are the ones who set up the box, put the bird seed underneath, and then the Roadrunners came in trying to get the bird seed, and then we pulled the string, which pulled the stick, and the box flattened on top of the Roadrunners. That's what happened. Aggs win 42-24 in an interesting game. Very interesting game. Got a lot of thoughts and a lot of takeaways. Now, what I'm going to do for you, as you know, I've got a couple of goals on this channel having come back. I don't want to feed you sunshine. I want to give you an honest take, and I want to give you an accurate take. I want to set you up for knowing what's going on. I think I did that for this game. Going into the final minute, the score was 42-17. My prediction for this game was 45-20. 45-20. So I had 25-point spread. I thought we would cover the 24.5 points. I missed on that. I missed covering the spread. But my overall differential was pretty spot on. Roadrunners come down and get the touchdown late. Otherwise, I think I was all over it. Now, that is not to toot my horn. I don't care about that. I just want to be as confirmation that I gave you guys a pretty good preview, an idea about what was going to take place. I've got some thoughts about this score. I really do. Overall, the score seems like it was good. It seems like it was all right. People were probably thinking, you know what? I really wish I would not have had that TD late given up. I disagree with that, and I'm going to tell you a few reasons why I disagree with all that. So let's jump into this, and I got three big takeaways for you in this game at the end. All right, so yes, that touchdown at the end put the total score over where I was comfortable. I didn't want it to be over 20. I wanted it to be somewhere in the 10-17 range. I thought that the Roadrunners had a good offense. As you heard me say, they've got 4 returning linemen, quarterback comes back, running back comes back, and a whole slew of wide receivers. They're matching up against our defense, which is basically, kind of getting rebuilt, especially at particular positions. Some at secondary, a lot of the defensive line, and you couple that with thinking, hey, this matchup, who's going to be ready to go first play, first series, first quarter? Probably the Roadrunners. I mean, they're used to this, right? They've got more experience. So that made a lot of sense to me for that score to be that. What didn't make sense to me is how the points came. So this is where I'm going to be critical. 24 was still too much for me, but I'm not. I expected the late TD no matter what. That seems to always kind of happen against your defense, your second stringers, third stringers. And I said that in my preview. That's something I think was going to happen. What I would have preferred not happen was either the bust right there at the start of the third quarter, or the touchdown prior to that. I wanted our first team defense to hold them to less points. So what I would have liked to have happened was us going into that final drive and it's 42-10, maybe even 47-10. Because I do think that the extra touchdown was there. I would have liked to have seen that too. But staying on this defense piece, to have it the last drive be 42-10 and then them go score that touchdown would make me feel a lot better. So I don't like the order in which the points came. So that's my big thing from there. We're going to jump all over this defense, going to jump all over this offense. There's definitely some positives to take away, but let's go through those. But first, let's see if we checked all the boxes. So let me remind you the things that I said. There was 5 big questions I had for this game. Will the O-line dominate? Will they be physical? Let me check notes real quick, make sure I've got all of them. Can the pass rush get home? Questions about Marcel's accuracy. Will Elko call plays? And what's the identity of this team? That was my 5 big questions. So I'm going to run through those real quick. I want to keep track of these as we go through, especially predictions for the season and record updates. Okay, we're going to do all of that. So will the O-line dominate? Will they be physical? I want to put a tentative check on this one. I think that they did after I've been through and rewatched the no huddle from Woodlands Aggie. I think they were physical. I didn't really see a problem there. We didn't run the ball a lot. We only ran, 37% of the time. It was 22 carries to, I think, 36 pass attempts. So we really weren't committed to running the ball in the first place. It was very vanilla. It was not very schematic. So I'll put a check there. I reserve the right to review that again next game. How about can the pass rush get home? Yes and no. I'm not going to say it did, so I'm not going to commit to this fully. I wish there would have been maybe a few more sacks. We got one, two or three would have made me feel a little bit better about giving this just a full on check. There were quite a few hurries though and pressures. So there's promise there. But as far as outright saying this box got checked, I'm going to say, no, let's wait and see for the next game. Marcel's accuracy, yes, and again, no. He was good on some of the shorter yardage throws. He piped some in there. Accuracy overall, I would say, was better, but the deep ball is still something that needs to get cleaned up. If we can get that deep ball cleaned up, I would have checked this right off the from the get go. If he hits that deep ball to KC, no question in my mind, this is a completion, but he didn't. So I'm going to have to downgrade. I'm just going to have to call it like I see it, y'all. I am going to have to call it like I see it. That way I don't give you any false hope. I talked about whether or not Elko would call plays. I think that gets the whole checkbox on what I said. I don't think he was going to call plays. Some are saying maybe he took the clipboard away in the second half. I don't think that's the case. I just think they made some adjustments. He's notorious for making adjustments, in-game adjustments, after the half adjustments. I think he did that. Aside from that one drive out of the half, adjustments were made. I didn't see the play calling issue that people thought it was going to be. Lastly, identity. What was the identity going to be? Was it going to be run or pass? My take on this was that we were going to come out of this game thinking our identity was passing, and then it was going to transition into running the ball over the next few games. Obviously, that's going to be a work in progress because you can't confirm that one until we've actually probably gotten through the Notre Dame game. But right now, it's going in my favor if we're kind of keeping track that way. Definitely had an emphasis, like I said, on the pass because we threw it like 62% of the time. We were clearly working on something. We would not ever usually be that unbalanced. So right now, the identity of the team is certainly a passing team, and we'll see if it transitions to running. Quite a few positives, I would say. Some I have some solid ones, let's say. Maybe not a whole bunch. I think everybody went through this game thinking they'd like to see a little bit more. Here's my positives. First one, it's a little bit of a chuckle. Klein on the goal line. I think everybody was probably thinking, I know I was, whether or not he was going to force us up the middle and say, look, I can run up the middle, or if he was going to pull it and pop it and toss it touchdown in the end zone. He did the latter to Theo, and it kind of gave the idea of like, the throwing up the double barrels to all the haters that he were criticizing this, and at the same time confirming all of them to be right. But nonetheless, it is progress. So we'll take it. We didn't run up the middle. We didn't get stuffed. We got the touchdown on fourth and goal at the 2. So that's definitely a positive. We'll see how that one evolves as time goes on. Wide receivers is probably the biggest positive I would take from this game to this point. Although something else means more to me, but the wide receivers just jumped out from us from the get-go. Craver and KC were electric to say the least. Explosiveness has been added to our tool belt. Saw a stat, nearly half of the 20-plus yard completions that we had last year, in all of last year, 13 games, we had half of those just last night. How big is that? I mean, that is just, it's almost shocking. So that's going to play into a lot of what I got to say about moving forward in some things, because if we're going to update predictions for the season, that adds a new element to the game I hadn't previously thought of that we're going to need to discuss. Another positive, the return game. The return game is another piece that's going to factor into how I'm going to update my prediction, because we had something, I mean, KC himself put up 94 yards in the return game, 1 touchdown, right? Bussy added a whole slew of other nice returns himself. And we have ourselves, I know it's just UTSA, but still, we didn't see this stuff against these types of teams much last year. So the progress there could pay good dividends in some closely contested games from these special teams units. The production that they gave, especially from the punt return aspect. I mean, we've had a chain in the past being able to return kickoffs, and that's been to our benefit. Notably, 2021 96-yard return versus Bama. But aside from a few games here and there where Anais Smith and him put together some nice returns, we haven't had a whole lot of that. And it looks like there's been a concerted effort to put that together and adjust that so it can be a strength for this team. Lastly, I think this is where it's most important to me. We came out of this game pretty healthy. I think maybe the only one that we're still a bit questionable about whether or not they were hurt is Chappelle. We'll see. Moss comes out of the game at some point, but he's coming back. He came back in. Casey goes out, comes back in. Things seem to be in order. Elko seems to be managing injuries quite well. Pretty pleased with the way injuries have been managed to this point so far. A couple of fixes that we need. Everyone's thinking it, everyone's going to say it. Run defense, and I agree and I don't agree at the same time. It's hard to. I think whenever I say run defense, or as people do, a lot of times what we start thinking is defensive line. I'm sure they could do a little bit better, but really, really, what I get from this whenever I watch some stuff is this defense lives and dies by the safeties. Just watch them. Just watch them when they line up too deep. One's going to flex down, one's going to stay back, and how they communicate and how they shift is a big deal. It is about resource allocation. Some of the runs that UTSA had on us have to do with running towards lesser numbers and running away from where we have our side stacked. They did a pretty good job of it, and they are a veteran team. And sometimes we just did not react quick enough to get our safeties into the box so that we could have better numbers. So we do that, our run defense gets better. And we saw it after the play, the first drive that UTSA had in the third quarter. And after that, man, we really started playing a lot better. That the shift there was remarkable. Balanced. The balanced run is to pass ratio. I'm sure it will get fixed. I'm not really concerned about it, but it is something we're going to need to fix. We can't just be that predictable. We can't just line up and throw the ball the entire time. That's not going to work. It's not who this team is. Besides, we've got Le'Veon Moss. We've got a whole bunch of running backs that are very capable. I think when we're ready to do that, we will be doing that. Next game will be very interesting to see how that develops. I'm sure it's an easy fix, to be quite honest. Third thing, already mentioned it. It's got to get fixed. We can't leave points out there and miss these deep ball throws. I know Marcel was juiced. I know there was a lot going into that. The wind was even behind him, I think is what he said. But that type of throw, it's gut wrenching when you see it. You just don't want to miss any of those, right? So what else? What else? Those are the fixes. So let's talk about prediction updates. These were my predictions for the season, some of my bolder predictions. Those are the ones I want to update. We'll get to my three big takeaways and update this record along with all this too. So my first big prediction was that we would have the same quarterback throughout the entire season. So that's still in play. Reed's healthy. He looks good. I'm feeling pretty good about that prediction so far. Happy to report that's on the table. I think we got a good shot at that one working for us at this point. I didn't really see anything last night that concerned me about what was happening. He seems to be pretty durable, honestly. Just watching him through last season, through this first game, there are some plays where I'm like, you're putting yourself at risk there, man. Just calm it down a bit. And he comes up out of them, relatively unscathed. I mean, I'll compare him back to Johnny in this regard because Johnny was fantastic at just not taking like large hits. He knew how to slice and dice, get deflective type tackles. Excellent work at it. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. That's my prediction for that. Second prediction, Woodlands Aggies. So shout out to him. He needs a shout out every year. He does the no huddles on YouTube of every game that we win. My prediction is that he will post 10 or more no huddles this year. 10 or more no huddles. So that is in play. Got to think about what that means. He always posts our wins. So I think he's going to post 10 of these this year. 10. Okay. Now, my other prediction was 9-3. So is 9-3 still on the table? We won. It's definitely still on the table. Question is it realistic? So let me break this part down for you. This is what my takeaway was in the first half. The first half, I thought we were like a 7-5 team at best. Could get worse depending on how that was. So 7-5 first half team. The second half team to me looked like a 9-3 plus team. Okay. So I'm going to just average them real quick. Between those two halves, plus the one drive in the second half, average them out, probably an 8-4 type of effort so far last night. There's definitely going to be some things that are going to have to get cleaned up if we're going to actually be that 9-3 team. The record is obviously still in play. And when it comes to that, I think that these special teams efforts could be something that if we're an 8-4 team now, they're going to get us to the 9-3. That's not something we've had before. It's not even something I've really thought about because it hasn't been that noticeable. But we've got such a dynamic return game at this point. And if you heard Elko's press conference talking about, and gosh, I'm going to forget his name, uh, that won the place kicking job, he said he won it by a wide margin. Okay, so that's pretty intricate. Some games we might have 1, 2, 3 games come down to a field goal, either somewhere throughout the game that we wish we would have gotten to help us throughout. This has been a little bit of an issue over the last couple seasons, missing one here or there, and it being at least a small factor. So that plus the return game might have something there that's going to win us, one extra game or make the difference in something that's going to pay us dividends for a W. The other thing I want to say is this: because the wide receiving core is so much better between Craver and KC. Whenever I made my prediction about some of the teams that we're going to play, we're talking about like Lenore Sellers with South Carolina, Lagway, between their quarterback and wide receiver combos. It's a difficult prediction to make for those teams because they have such a high upside with their talent that they have at receiver and quarterback that they could go out and just be world beaters for one game and beat almost anybody. So I was really worried about those types of games happening to us. Now I think that we could be a team that can go do that to other teams. So we've got with the wide receivers we've got, the top end could be that, the team that we're not supposed to beat, just all of a sudden we go out and do that because, hey, Mario Craver just has an out of body experience. Casey Concepcion just does what he does and we've never seen. He does something we've never seen before. Although last night was kind of a lot of that. It's probably the best wide receiving core we've had in the modern era. I just don't even know if previous to that it was even possible to be this good. But between those two, Bussy, Ashton Bethel Roman, Nye Black, gosh, and I'd butcher the other tight end's name that we passed to, and I don't mean Theo Mellon Orstrom. I've got that one down with the other guy. All played a factor. Wide receiving core looks to be as good as we've ever had. So interesting how that's going to play into the dynamic of whether or not we can make 9-3. I think with that type of receiving core, we may get that one extra win that gets us over the edge. So here's my 3 big takeaways from this game. First of all, the defense lives and dies by the safeties. Okay, I mentioned that earlier. I just want to reemphasize it because I think it's a big deal. I've not been a fan of this defense and the way it's set up. I think it's more complicated than we might want it to be. I think it'll pay dividends in the end once they get it down. It's just taking a little while, and I think that's carrying over. If they get it down, it's going to be pretty good. It'll look more like it did in the second half on the regular. We need to see that. So when they're playing like they're playing, we will see that. So that's my big takeaway for that. Either way, they got to be better. They got to be better fitting those runs. They got to be better plugging those holes, getting penetration on the defensive line and in coverage. Some of the coverage things, they looked good. The coverage looked better. Des Ricks looked better. We were just that close to having a few more passes defended. And you just look at those passes defended. We only had one, but there were a number of guys that were there, almost able to make the play, and we're just that far off from being able to do it. So that improvement was pretty big between the secondary coverage and the wide receivers. Those together, the improvement there are remarkable. So that's definitely a big takeaway. Put those in there. The second big takeaway. I'm not. I don't say this lightly, but at this point, it's staring me in the face so much. I feel like I kind of have to say it. It does filter into all that before. Are we going to have a Bolitnikoff contender this year? And gosh, was Mike Evans even a Bolitnikoff contender? I'm going to have to go back and look at that one. I just can't. I'm not sure about that. But between Craver and KC, I think we're a contender. KC went 3 for 72, 1 TD, 24-yard average. He had a long of 31. He adds 2 returns for 94 yards, another TD. Right now, he's something like, I think, 21st in the nation in all-purpose yards. Craver, 8 for 122, 2 TDs, 15.3 average. We can win any game with these two guys. That's the big takeaway, that we can win any game with these two guys, and we might have ourselves a Bolitnikoff a contender, not winner, contender. That's all I'm saying at this point. And last big takeaway, special teams could be the difference. Special teams could be the difference in 8-4 and 9-3. If we want to be in the SEC championship or better, even be in the playoff conversation, 9-3 has to be there. Special teams could do that. So that's my reaction for the UTSA game. Utah State Aggies up next. Stay tuned for that. As always, I don't want your subs, but if that helps your algorithm, by all means do it. But you're probably better off liking or sharing or hitting the bell. Do what you got to do for your algorithm, not for me. This is all for you guys. Thanks for joining.